Pillar 2. Dichotomy of control. Absolute. The dichotomy of control remains the unyielding spine and foundational discipline of Dark Depth Neo-Stoicism. The practitioner controls only their own judgments, their willed actions, and the deliberate shaping of their character. Nothing more and nothing less. All else, the world's random chaos, other people's malice or indifference, the body's inevitable betrayal through illness or aging, and even the eventual heat death of the universe, lies permanently outside the sphere of command. There is no room for negotiation, bargaining, or wishful extension of influence. Acceptance in this framework is never passive resignation or defeatist surrender. It is instead a ferocious, active refusal to expend even a single drop of one's finite will, energy, or attention on elements that cannot be moved or altered. This absolute boundary protects mental sovereignty and prevents the wasteful exhaustion that comes from raging against the uncontrollable. In moments of extreme adversity, whether witnessing genocide, enduring profound heartbreak, facing personal ruin, or confronting systemic injustice, the central Stoic question stays brutally clear and uncompromising. Is this mine to move? If the answer is no, the response is immediate release, not because the event lacks gravity, but because emotional entanglement with it would erode the only domain where true freedom exists. This pillar demands constant vigilance and honest self-audit, training the mind to redirect every impulse toward what can actually be influenced. By maintaining this absolute divide, the practitioner conserves inner resources for virtuous action within their proper realm, achieving a calm that arises not from denial, but from ruthless clarity about the limits of human agency amid indifferent forces. This division is absolute because reality itself enforces it without mercy. The universe does not negotiate. External events unfold according to chains of cause and effect that dwarf human intention. Other people act from their own hidden motives and pressures. The body ages, sickens, and fails on its own timeline. Civilizations rise and fall, stars burn out, and entropy claims everything in the end. To pretend otherwise is to waste the only true possession a person has, the small but sovereign territory of judgment and will. The practitioner, therefore, draws a line with iron finality. Judgments, the interpretations and meanings assigned to events, belong entirely inside the line. Willed actions, the deliberate choices of what to do or refrain from doing, belong inside. The ongoing sculpting of character, the person one becomes through repeated decisions, belongs inside. Everything else is permanently outside, and no amount of desire, anger, or cleverness can pull it across that boundary. Acceptance under this pillar is ferocious because it is an assertion of power, not a surrender. It is the deliberate withholding of energy from the uncontrollable, so that every remaining drop can be poured into what can be commanded. Raging against the weather, against another person's choices, against the slow decay of the body, or against cosmic indifference, does not change those things. It only depletes the one resource that actually matters, the clarity and strength of the inner self. The practitioner learns to feel the full emotional impact of events, the grief, the rage, the heartbreak, yet refuses to let that impact spill into futile resistance. The energy is redirected inward with ruthless discipline. This is not cold detachment. It is focused intensity. It is the decision to stop leaking power into the void and to guard the only place where power can still produce results. The question, is this mine to move, becomes a constant internal blade, cutting through every impulse and reaction. When witnessing horrors beyond personal influence, the practitioner asks it. When facing betrayal or loss, the practitioner asks it. When the body begins to betray or the world delivers chaos, the practitioner asks it. If the honest answer is no, release follows immediately. This release is not indifference. It is the preservation of freedom. Emotional entanglement with the uncontrollable turns the mind into a prisoner of externals. By refusing that entanglement, the practitioner keeps the mind free to operate where it still matters, in the formation of judgments, the selection of actions, and the refinement of character. The calm that results is not the calm of avoidance, but the calm of mastery, the deep, grounded steadiness that comes from knowing exactly where one's power begins and ends. This pillar requires constant vigilance, because the mind naturally wants to blur the line. It wants to believe that worrying long enough, or raging hard enough, or hoping desperately enough can influence the uncontrollable. Honest self-audit becomes the daily practice of catching these impulses the moment they arise. The practitioner examines every emotional reaction, every spiraling thought, every urge to control outcomes that lie beyond reach. When such an impulse is found, it is redirected without mercy. The energy is pulled back inside the boundary and turned towards something that can actually be shaped. A clearer judgment, a more deliberate action, a stronger character. Over time, this vigilance becomes almost automatic. The mind learns to police its own borders with increasing speed and precision. What once drained hours or days of life energy now triggers an instant return to the proper domain. The absolute nature of the divide protects mental sovereignty in a world designed to erode it. Other people's malice, societal pressures, random accidents, and the slow grind of time all press against the self from every direction. Without this pillar, the self dissolves into reactivity, forever tossed by forces it cannot command. With the pillar firmly in place, the self remains an internal fortress. External events can destroy the body, ruin circumstances, or take away every possession, but they cannot touch the inner citadel unless the practitioner opens the gates through wasted attention and emotional entanglement. This protection is not theoretical. It is lived, moment by moment, in the face of real adversity. The practitioner who has internalized this dichotomy can stand in the middle of chaos, personal or collective, and still maintain clarity of judgment and freedom of will. By maintaining this absolute divide, the practitioner conserves inner resources for virtuous action within their proper realm. Every ounce of will that is not wasted on the uncontrollable becomes available for what matters, choosing wise judgments, performing right actions, and building a character that can endure. This conservation creates a kind of inner abundance. Where others exhaust themselves in futile resistance, the practitioner moves with focused power. The calm that arises is profound, because it rests on truth rather than illusion. It is the calm of seeing reality exactly as it is, indifferent, vast, and uncontrollable in most respects, and still knowing that one small but decisive domain remains entirely one's own. This is freedom of the deepest kind, not freedom from hardship, but freedom within hardship. Not freedom from limitation, but freedom defined by limitation. The dichotomy of control, when fully embodied, transforms the entire experience of existence. Life still brings suffering, loss, and chaos, but these things no longer own the self. They crash against the boundary and break, while the practitioner remains rooted inside, directing energy where it can still create meaning. This pillar does not make life easy, it makes life sovereign. It turns the practitioner from a leaf blown by every wind into a rooted presence that chooses its own stance, even in the storm. The calm it produces is not fragile or superficial. It is the deep, resilient steadiness of one who has drawn the line clearly and defended it without compromise. In a universe of indifferent forces and limited human power, this remains the only genuine freedom available, and the pillar that guards it is absolute.